the meaning of this in verse. There is no form inside the mind. Form is nourished by the mind. Body, possessions, the world, and beings. From repository consciousness all appear. The mind, will, and consciousness. The five dharmas and modes of reality. The purification of two kinds of no-self. These are taught by those who teach. Long and short, is and isn't. From each in turn the other arises. Because one isn't, the other is. Because one is, the other isn't. Analyzing something into dust doesn't yield the idea of its form. But saying it is nothing but mind doesn't please deluded people. This isn't a realm for philosophers. Nor is it for Shravakas. The teaching of those who would save the world is the realm of self-realization. 14. In order to purify the stream of perceptions of his own mind, Mahamati Bodhisattva once more asked the Buddha, Bhagwan, how is the stream of perceptions of beings' minds purified? By degrees or all at once? The Buddha told Mahamati, by degrees and not all at once. Like the gooseberry, which ripens by degrees and not all at once, thus do tathagatas purify the stream of perceptions of beings' minds by degrees and not all at once. Or like a potter, who makes vessels by degrees and not all at once, thus do tathagatas purify the stream of perceptions of beings' minds by degrees and not all at once. Or like the earth, which gives birth to living things by degrees and not all at once, thus do tathagatas purify the stream of perceptions of beings' minds by degrees and not all at once. Or like when people become proficient in such arts as music or writing or painting by degrees and not all at once. Thus do tathagatas purify the stream of perceptions of beings' minds by degrees and not all at once. Or just as a clear mirror reflects formless images all at once. Tathagatas likewise purify the stream of perceptions of beings' minds by displaying pure, formless, undifferentiated realms all at once. Or just as the sun and moon illuminate images all at once. Tathagatas likewise reveal the supreme realm of inconceivable wisdom all at once to those who have freed themselves of the habit energy and misconceptions that are perceptions of their own minds. Or just as repository consciousness distinguishes such different perceptions of one's mind as the realms of the body, its possessions, and the world around it all at once, Nishyanda Buddhas likewise bring beings to maturity in whatever realm they dwell all at once and lead practitioners to reside in Akanishta heaven. Or just as the Nishyanda Buddhas created by the Dharmata Buddha radiate light, the personal realization of Buddha knowledge likewise illuminates and dispels erroneous views and projections regarding the existence or non-existence of dharmas and their characteristics. 15. Mahamati. The Dharmatanishyanda Buddha teaches that the individual and shared characteristics of every dharma are due to the habit energy of the perceptions of the mind and to the continued attachment to an imagined reality that is no more real than an illusion, and one that cannot be grasped. Moreover, Mahamati, an imagined reality arises from attachment to a dependent reality. Mahamati. It is like when a magician uses materials such as plants and wood and tiles and stone to create an illusion and conjures the appearance of different creatures, which then gives rise to different projections, but projections that are not real. In the same manner, Mahamati, it is based on a dependent reality that the myriad projections of an imagined reality arise. The myriad projections of appearances that are the habit energy of attachment to projections. Mahamati, this is how the appearances of an imagined reality arise. Mahamati, this is what the Nishyanda Buddha teaches. Mahamati, what the Dharmata Buddha does is establish and create that realm which transcends self-existent appearances of the mind and on which the personal realization of Buddha knowledge depends. Mahamati. The Nirmana Buddha teaches charity, morality, forbearance, zeal, meditation, and wisdom of the mind, detachment from the skandhas, datas, and ayatanas, liberation from the projection, contemplation and establishment of appearances of consciousness, and transcendence of the views of followers of other paths and the views of formlessness. Also, Mahamati, the Dharmata Buddha is free from objective support. Freedom from objective support and from the operation of sensation is not a realm known to ignorant people. Shravakas, Pratyekabuddhas, or followers of other paths attached to a self, but is the ultimate, unique realm established by the personal realization of Buddha knowledge. Therefore, Mahamati, you should devote yourself to cultivating the personal realization of this ultimate, unique realm of Buddha knowledge and put an end to views that are perceptions of the mind. 16. Moreover, Mahamati, there are two differences that characterize the Shravaka path. The differences in their attainment of the personal realization of Buddha knowledge and in their attachment to the existence of an imagined reality. And what is different about a Shravaka's attainment of the personal realization of Buddha knowledge? This refers to attaining stillness of mind in regard to the realms of impermanence, suffering, emptiness, and the absence of a self. In regard to the truths concerning the cessation and transcendence of desire, and in regard to the end of anything indestructible among the individual or shared characteristics of the skandhas, tathagatas, and ayatanas. And with stillness of mind come the liberation of dhyana, the final fruit of samadhi, and the deliverance of samapatti. But while enjoying the bliss from the personal realization of Buddha knowledge, Shravakas are not yet free of habit energy or imperceptible transformation deaths. This is how a Shravaka's attainment of the personal realization of Buddha knowledge differs. Mahamati. The bliss from the personal realization of Buddha knowledge attained by bodhisattvas differs in that they avoid the bliss of annihilation and the bliss of samapatti, which they do not experience because of their compassion for others and their original vows. Mahamati, this is how the bliss attained by Shravakas from the personal realization of Buddha knowledge differs. And this difference in the bliss from the personal realization of Buddha knowledge is not something bodhisattvas should cultivate. Mahamati, what is meant by the attachment of Shravakas to the existence of an imagined reality? This refers to knowing that the individual and shared characteristics of blue and yellow and red and white and of solidity and moisture and warmth and movement of the material elements arise without a creator, as previous sages have declared, but upon seeing them, giving rise to projections of their self-existence. This is what is meant by the attachment of Shravakas to the existence of an imagined reality. This is something bodhisattvas should understand and put an end to by getting rid of views concerning a self among dharmas along with those concerning a self among persons, as they proceed to establish themselves in the sequence of stages. 17. At that time, Mahamati Bodhisattva asked the Buddha, Bhagwan, the Tathagata teaches that what is eternal and inconceivable is the realm of ultimate truth, the realm of Buddha knowledge one realizes oneself. Bhagwan, do other schools not teach that what is eternal and inconceivable is a cause? The Buddha told Mahamati, the cause of other schools does not qualify as eternal and inconceivable. And why not? Because what other schools claim is eternal and inconceivable is not the result of its own causal attribute. If what is eternal and inconceivable is not the result of its own causal attribute, on what basis does it appear as eternal and inconceivable? Furthermore, Mahamati, if what is inconceivable were the result of its own causal attribute, it would be eternal. But because it would be due to the causal attribute of a creator, it would not qualify as eternal and inconceivable. Mahamati, the reason my ultimate truth is eternal and inconceivable is because ultimate truth is the result of a causal attribute that transcends existence and non-existence. Because the attainment of personal realization is its attribute, it has an attribute. And because the knowledge of ultimate truth is its cause, it has a cause. And because it is beyond existence and non-existence, it resembles what is not created. Space, nirvana, and complete cessation. This is why it is eternal. Hence, Mahamati, it is not the same as the doctrines about what is eternal and inconceivable of other schools. Thus, Mahamati, this eternal and inconceivable is attained by the personal realization of the knowledge of the tathagatas. Therefore, the eternal and inconceivable attained by the personal realization of Buddha knowledge is what you should cultivate. Moreover, Mahamati, the eternal and inconceivable of members of other schools is impermanent because it is caused by something else and because it lacks the power to create its own causal attribute. Also, Mahamati, members of other schools consider their eternal and inconceivable as eternal despite having witnessed the impermanence of the existence and non-existence of what is created. Mahamati. Despite having witnessed the impermanence of the existence and non-existence of what is created, I could use the same method to claim that the realm of Buddha knowledge realized by oneself is eternal and free from causes. Mahamati. If the eternal and inconceivable of other schools were the result of a causal attribute and that causal attribute did not itself exist, it would be the same as horns on a rabbit. Their eternal and inconceivable would be merely words and imagination. This is the problem among members of other schools. And how so? Because what is merely words and imagination is the same as rabbit horns, for which a causal attribute does not exist. Mahamati. What I speak of as eternal and inconceivable is eternal because it is based on the attribute of personal realization and because it transcends the existence and non-existence of what is created. It is not in consideration of the impermanence of external non-existence that it is eternal. Mahamati. If what is eternal and inconceivable were eternal in consideration of the impermanence of external non-existence, there would be no way to know the eternal and inconceivable's own causal attribute. As this distracts people from the attainment of the personal realization of the realm of Buddha knowledge, it is not worth talking about. 18. Furthermore, Mahamati. Shravakas who are afraid of the suffering that comes from their projection of samsara seek nirvana unaware that the difference between samsara and nirvana, as well as their projection of everything else, does not exist. They conceive of nirvana as the cessation of all future sensory realms, not the transformation of repository consciousness through the personal realization of Buddha knowledge. Thus, ignorant people speak of three paths and not of the projection-free realm that is nothing but mind. Mahamati. They therefore do not know the realm of the mind perceived by tathagatas of the past, the present, and the future. Instead, they are attached to the perception of a realm outside the mind and keep turning the wheel of samsara. 19. Furthermore, Mahamati. Nothing arises. This is what the tathagatas of the past, the present, and the future teach. And how so? Because existence and non-existence are perceptions of one's own mind, the existence or non-existence of which does not arise. Mahamati. Nothing that exists arises. Everything is like horns on a rabbit or a horse, the mistaken projections of an imagined reality by ignorant beings. Therefore, Mahamati. Nothing that exists arises. The non-arising that characterizes all that exists, this is the personal realization of the realm of Buddha knowledge, not the dualistic realm of projections of the ignorant. The existence that characterizes such things as your body, your possessions, and the world around you, Mahamati, is the interplay of the grasping and the grasped of repository consciousness. Trapped by their dualistic views of origination, duration, and cessation and their wish for things to arise, the ignorant give rise to projections of existence and non-existence, not the wise. Mahamati. You should reflect on this in your practice. XX. Furthermore, Mahamati, there are 5 lineages of realization. And what are the 5? They are the lineage of Shravaka realization, the lineage of Pratyekabuddha realization, the lineage of Tathagata realization, the indeterminate lineage, and the distant lineage. How do we recognize the lineage of Shravaka realization? Upon learning how to put an end to the individual and shared characteristics of the skandhas, the datas, and the ayatanas, the hair on their entire body stands on end, and they delight in cultivating a knowledge of characteristics but not in cultivating an awareness of dependent origination. This is what is meant by the lineage of Shravaka realization. The realization of a Shravaka belongs to the 5th and 6th stages. They put an end to the arising of passion but not to the habit energy of passion. And they escape karmic deaths but do not escape imperceptible transformation deaths. They bellow the lion's roar. My lives have ended. I have walked the path of purity. I will not suffer another existence. Thus, they cultivate the knowledge that there is no self among persons and think that they have attained nirvana. Mahamati. Those whose realization is distant also seek nirvana but think of it in terms of a self or a being or a life or an individuality. And there are followers of still other paths who think everything depends on a creator, and when its existence comes to an end, that is nirvana. Those who think like this are incapable of seeing that there is no self in dharmas, and for them there is no liberation. Mahamati, these lineages of Shravaka realization and those of other schools do not transcend the concept of transcendence. You should practice with diligence to transform such pernicious views. Mahamati. As for the lineage of Pratyekabuddha realization, upon hearing about the realization of different causal conditions, the hair on their entire body stands on end, and they weep tears of sorrow, and they avoid conditions or any attachment to them. But when they hear about different bodies and powers and different transformations involving combination and separation, their minds are captivated. Anyone whose understanding belongs to the lineage of Pratyekabuddha realization is taught in accordance with the Pratyekabuddha path. This is what characterizes the lineage of Pratyekabuddha realization. Mahamati, as for the lineage of Tathagata realization, there are 4 kinds. The lineage of realization concerned with the reality of dharmas. The lineage of realization concerned with the non-reality of dharmas. The lineage of realization concerned with the attainment of the personal realization of Buddha knowledge, and the lineage of realization concerned with the splendors of external Buddhalans. Mahamati. When someone hears these 4 described one after the other, as well as the inconceivable realm whereby their body, possessions, and the world around them are merely perceptions of their own minds, and they are not terrified or alarmed, this is what characterizes membership in the lineages of Tathagata realization. Mahamati, the indeterminate lineage includes those who are instructed in these 3 lineages but who enter according to one teaching and succeed according to another. Mahamati. Even if they are at the stage of initial purification where lineages are established. If they establish themselves beyond the projectionless stage, and they purify the habit energy of their passions through the personal realization of the repository consciousness, and they see that dharmas have no self, even if they are Shravakas dwelling in the bliss of samadhi, they will attain the glorious body of a Tathagata. XXIII. The Bhagavan then repeated this teaching in verse. The goal of finding the stream, returning once more or not at all, or reaching the birthless state, all are confusions of the mind. Sometimes I teach 3 paths, sometimes one and sometimes none. 4 fools and those of little wisdom, and the wise who dwell apart. The teaching of ultimate truth transcends all dualities. For those who dwell in projectionless realms, why create 3 paths? Dhyanas and boundless states, samadhis devoid of form, cessation of perception. These don't exist where there is only mind. XXIII. As for acquainted, Mahamati, if not acquainted, who in this world would liberate them? There are 2 kinds of acquainted, Mahamati, those who forsake good roots and those whose vows regarding others are without limits. Mahamati, what is meant by forsaking good roots? This refers to slandering the bodhisattva canon and falsely claiming it is not in accord with the teachings of liberation in the Sutras or in the Vinaya. Because they forsake their good roots, they don't enter nirvana. Next are bodhisattvas whose practice includes the vow not to enter nirvana until all beings enter nirvana. However, Mahamati, what they mean by entering nirvana is characterized by not entering nirvana. Thus, they, too, follow the acquainted path. Mahamati asked, Bhagavan, then which of these never enters nirvana? The Buddha replied, Mahamati, bodhisattva acquainted. They know that everything is already in nirvana. Thus, they never enter nirvana. This is not true of those acquainted who forsake their good roots. Mahamati, even though they forsake their good roots, through the power of the tathagatas, at some point their good roots reappear. And how so? Because tathagatas do not forsake any being. This is why bodhisattva acquainted do not enter nirvana. XXIII. Moreover, Mahamati, bodhisattvas should be well acquainted with the 3 modes of reality. And what are the 3 modes of reality? Imagined reality, dependent reality, and perfected reality. Mahamati, imagined reality arises from appearances. And how does imagined reality arise from appearances? Mahamati, as the objects and forms of dependent reality appear, attachment results in two kinds of imagined reality. These are what the tathagatas, the arhats, the fully enlightened ones describe as attachment to appearance and attachment to name. Attachment to appearance involves attachment to external and internal entities, while attachment to name involves attachment to the individual and shared characteristics of these external and internal entities. These are the two kinds of imagined reality. What serves as the ground and objective support from which they arise is dependent reality. And what is perfected reality? This is the mode that is free from name or appearance or from projection. It is attained by Buddha knowledge and is the realm where the personal realization of Buddha knowledge takes place. This is perfected reality in the heart of the Tathagata Garbha. The Buddha then repeated the meaning of this in verse. Name and appearance and projection. These characterize two modes of reality. Correct knowledge and suchness. These characterize the perfected mode. Mahamati, this is what is known as the teaching of how to view what characterizes the five dharmas and the modes of reality. This is the realm where the personal realization of Buddha knowledge takes place and which you and other bodhisattvas should cultivate.